First, another look at one of the Fab Four.
3,000 screaming teenagers are at New York's Kennedy Airport to greet, you guessed it, the Beatles. This rock and roll group has taken over as the kingpins of musical appreciation.
A new book looks at George Harrison, who many consider the most misunderstood and mysterious Beatle. One-time Beatles biographer Philip Norman explores Harrison's often turbulent private life as a founding member of one of the greatest rock bands of all time.
The book is George Harrison, The Reluctant Beatle, and Philip joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I'm not a Beatle-phile, but my perception is that John and Paul were the heart and soul, and then Ringo was Ringo, and George was the other guy. Is that what the average person thinks, and what is the myth of that?
Well, Lennon and McCartney, as songwriters and performers, were a hugely dominant part of the Beatles. But George had great talent. I mean, he was a reluctant Beatle. He wasn't a reluctant musician. He came up with all the riffs that you remember from the greatest Beatle tracks. He also wrote songs, but he didn't have a partner to write songs. It took him much longer to mature. And he was very much passed over by their producer, George Martin, who was a great producer, but was entranced by John and Paul's genius and how many songs they turned out. And George was often left on the sidelines, which was very unjust, actually.
I was curious about the dichotomy between what we saw publicly and what appears to be a private, more fiery, maybe temperamental personality versus what people saw in public.
He was a massive contradiction. I mean, that's what makes him interesting to me as a writer and biographer. He railed against materialism, the material world, and yet he was the first pop musician to write a song complaining about income tax. He was tremendously noble when he organized the concert for Bangladesh, really the first big rock charity concert that showed rock musicians just weren't sort of selfish egotists. On the other hand, he broke the first law of the Beatles, which was you don't sleep with another Beatles wife. So all the way through this book, there is one side of George and the other side of George. His wife, Pattie Boyd, his first wife, Pattie Boyd, told me he was very, very sweet and lovely until he learned to meditate. That is not what meditation is supposed to do.
Wow. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like he was more than just on the sidelines. It sounded like the other three gave him a hard time early on. Was that just good-natured, or was there something there?
They were very, very close because they'd been through a lot to get the three of them. John, Paul, and George had been through the mill, been to Hamburg playing in strip joints, that kind of thing. But John always regarded George, as he put it, as that bloody kid, because George was 2 years younger than John. And when they first met, George was like a little boy with sticky out ears. He could still play those solos. They needed him. But he didn't really get equality with John until around the Sgt. Pepper time.
Mm.
Is that what kind of drove this feeling of insecurity that he apparently had at times?
Yes, it's amazing that he was really paranoid and temperamental and prickly. He'd had the most stable family background. All the other three had family trauma of one sort or another. George had wonderful parents and three older siblings who adored him. Very, very stable early life, but in the end turned out to be the one, who needed the spiritual solace of Hinduism and Indian music.
And people may forget, his solo career started out on a pretty good high note.
Well, yes, they all loved the attention to begin with, just being famous and having as many shirts as they wanted to buy and learning how to eat smoked salmon and that kind of thing. Later on, it became very oppressive to George because the screaming, the Beatlemania, really blotted out his musicianship, and he hated that. And in America in particular, where there was almost no security on their big American tours, George would be trying to play with with a couple of screaming young women actually hanging around his neck because there was no real security.
Philip, you mentioned this earlier, too, that with Pattie Boyd, well, rather that he slept with Ringo Starr's wife, but then also Pattie Boyd, there was this issue with Eric Clapton, but he continued on a friendship with Eric Clapton despite this affair that he had with Pattie Boyd.
That's right. Clapton, who was George's best friend, and all through was George's best friend. But Clapton had a huge passion for Pattie Boyd, George's first wife. Very, very lovely, sweet fashion model of the day. And Clapton didn't dare to approach her, really. So he had to write a song called Layla, which was like talking to her through a song about, your old man is letting you down and I'm here if you want me, kind of thing. Eventually, she went off, George's behavior became so horrible, she went off with Clapton, who immediately launched on about 18 years of alcoholism. So it wasn't a great refuge in the end. But George and Eric were even closer afterwards, strangely enough, whereas Patty felt sort of rather on the sidelines, felt she was a bit of an irrelevancy to this macho superstar friendship of these two guitar gods. They were six-string gods.
Wow. There was a remarkable evolution between their music in the early 60s and the late 60s. How much did he have to do with that?
Well, strangely enough, the great sort of, the huge culture-changing album was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And George had almost nothing to do with that. But he did eventually write a piece for that album called Within You, Without You, which was really a pastiche of a classical Indian music piece. And that was amazing. And he did get credit for that. But he really had to wait until after the Beatles had broken up to have full recognition.
We're going to take a look at a video, Mindset on You. And I was wondering about his reflections on his solo career. How did he feel about the way it progressed and evolved?
Well, he produced a solo album which was really full of the songs which had been rejected by Lennon and McCartney. And it was a huge hit and total vindication for all the years in the shadows that George had gone through. But unfortunately, out of that came a plagiarism lawsuit about the huge global hit "My Sweet Lord," and that went on for years. Went on for years.
Huh. Well, it's fascinating. The book is called George Harrison, The Reluctant Beatle. For more, follow Philip Norman on X. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Philip.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.